So, it's time to distribute your book. Would you like to get it in as many bookstores as you can? Let's talk about distribution. So you'd like to get your book on the shelf in a bookstore. How do you do that? Well, the easiest way is to approach your local bookstores and to set up a consignment account with them, by which when they sell one of your books, they actually pay you, and they don't pay you before that. You get the best margin with that kind of setup. Usually bookstores will give you 60% of the proceeds that they earn, which is fabulous. However, many bookstores don't want to do that. They don't want to deal with each individual author or small publisher to set up these accounts. They want to buy their books wholesale through a larger distributor. And my disclaimer right off the bat is I don't actually have the complete solution for this. I can tell you a little bit of my experience. So my objective when I wanted to get my book out there more is I actually wanted to do events. I wanted to do speaking events or meet and greets at Barnes & Noble. And Barnes & Noble will not set up a consignment account with individuals, generally speaking. So you need to be able to distribute it either directly through Barnes & Noble or through Ingram. And to do that, you need to have your book listed, and this is where the CreateSpace ISBN that we talked about in an earlier episode becomes a problem, is that if your ISBN is through CreateSpace, it's a print on demand, it comes up in their catalog that way, and you cannot, they will not purchase those for the bookshelves in the store. They will, if a customer comes in and says, hey, I want to get that book, they'll order it for them and bring it in, no problem, because it's already pre-sold. So let's look at the CreateSpace distribution page. So you can see here, my book, Developing Awareness, I have selected to sell it on Amazon.com, Amazon Europe, and CreateSpace eStore. So those are all set up for me. Now, expanded distribution, which we see here at the bottom, I could have selected bookstores and online retailers. So even if you don't have a CreateSpace ISBN, you have your own ISBN, you can select to sell it through them, their own distribution to bookstores and online retailers. It's the same situation though, because when you're selling through CreateSpace distribution, it is a print-on-demand book, which means people can go in and get it, but they will not stock it on the bookshelves. And if you want to do a book event, it has to be returnable, and this kind of distribution is not returnable. So I had a pretty big fiasco with that. And actually in my book, Deconditioning Ground, if you're interested in the story, pick up that book and it actually kind of explains the whole story I had with the CreateSpace ISBN and trying to get into Barnes & Noble, which I tried, I think it was 2013 and 2012, and it didn't work. So I started looking at distributors, and actually I had a distributor at that time. I was using New Leaf, and that worked pretty well. Didn't sell a lot of copies through them. And the problem with a lot of these distributors is they want to charge you like a maintenance fee every year. So there's a little bit of an expense every year for them to actually handle your book. Plus they also charge you like a setup fee, somewhere between $300, $400, $500, and some of them are even more than that, which I don't even remember the names of those distributors. I kind of flushed them right away. Right now, this year I set up an agreement with BCH, and they are based out of New York, and they have a direct in with Barnes & Noble as well as Ingram and Baker & Taylor. So those were the different distribution channels I was looking at. The issue with them, I originally looked at them way back when, was that pretty much at the price I was selling my books at earlier, it would cost me about $1 to sell each book through them. That's how low the amount of money I get back from them. So I raised my book up a couple dollars. So at $14.95, I was losing money. At $16.95, I'd make about $1 if the book sold. Unfortunately, what happens when the books are returned is I actually would lose $1. So overall, I was hoping to break even with them, but it would get me into Barnes & Noble, and I was thinking of it as my Alaskan cruise. So it wasn't really, I was looking for exposure and the experience of actually doing book sellings and meeting people, because I'm kind of isolated out here, rural. And so that's what I went for. and knowing that I was actually going to be kind of paying them to sell my book. It's kind of funny that way, but it turned out that way for me. So it's not the best sales strategy, but if you're looking to build readership, if you're looking for connections with people, I mean, I built my email list that way. And so if you have other services that you're also looking to sell, it's possibly a good way of doing it, or it's an option you can consider. Right now I'm looking at my returns on investment kind of thing, and it's looking worse than I expected. I think I spent about $2,500 in books. So far I've gotten about $500 in a check from my distributor. So I'm out $2,000, and there's more books. I had a problem with the booksellers. Actually, the book events, a lot of the booksellers brought in too many books. Like they bought 30, like what were they thinking? Or they bought 30 of each of my titles. I had one place I almost like passed out. It's like, okay, this is going to cost me a couple $100 just to do this event, because they brought so many in, and they were titles I weren't even trying to promote at that time. So you still have to do the marketing. There are thousands of books out there, and your book might catch someone's eye, but the truth is it's just a listing in a catalog. So your ideal way is to do one-on-one connections with people. So if you're planning on using a distributor, you have to have a marketing plan in place at the same time. And if you look at the different, so when my distributor BCH sells direct to Barnes & Noble, they take, do I get 40%? Anyway, there's a certain level of cut that's 40%. And then when they sell through Ingram, and Barnes & Noble can order through Ingram, it's 57%. So it's a very different, and so when they're returned, and then there's shipping, right? So when they ship them out, I'm charged $1, and when they ship them back, I'm charged $1. So the distribution hasn't been that exciting for me, but it's something to think about and look into. And it's going to be another investment. So it's basically, if you're ready to bring your game up to another level, that's a possibility. If you have questions about distribution, write them down in the comments. That'd be fabulous. And I think I've kind of given you my experience with it. And so BCH is probably the least expensive option for direct into Ingram, but I'm actually thinking about canceling my Ingram part of it, because most of my sales are through Barnes & Noble, and they just happen to buy through Ingram for some reason, which then creates less profits for me. So I might actually cancel that part in the next few months, thinking about it. So yeah, good luck.